6th grade. Today's math lesson is 912, Misleading Graphs and Statistics, and it starts on page 314. So we want to start with the two graphs at the very top of the page. They are graphs that show the same data in two different ways. If you take a look at the graphs, take just a minute to read those as we've talked about in class before. Read the title, read the labels for the y and x axes, and make sure you understand what each graph is trying to say. So you'll notice that the graph on the left increases pretty slowly, whereas the one on the right increases with a little more quickness as we go through the graph. Part of the reason for that is the y-axis. You'll notice that the interval is 2's over on the left, and then it is 1's with a tear on the graph on the right. So there's a lot of important information beneath the graph. It says both graphs show the same information about worker hourly pay. Although both show that wages have increased, the graph to the right gives the impression that wages have increased more rapidly. And what causes this? And as we said, there's a difference in the scale or the interval on the y-axis. So it says look at the vertical scale of each graph. The expanded scale on the graph at the right creates the impression of a faster rate of increase. Now take a minute to look at the bar graph that's almost at the bottom of the page, the one called pet food sales. You might notice that they don't have a tear and yet they still start at 8. And so that's really going to throw off the data or the way the data can be interpreted. So it looks like there's been very little hamster food sales and quite a bit of gerbil food sales. But the beginning of that got cut off. So it really distorts the data and misleads the reader with their information. So take a look at question 1. This is a tricky one, so I want to go ahead and address this one first. I've had some questions on this one. It says use the graphs above for exercise 1-2. 1 says, it is time for a new labor contract. Which line graph would you use if you represent labor? Which would you use if you represented management? Explain. Okay, so if you're the labor side, that means you're representing the workers and what they want. If you're management, then you're representing the management side. So if you take a look at those two graphs at the top of the page, again, the ones with the green headings that say worker wages. If you were labor, you would probably pick the graph on the left. And that's because it's showing a really small increase, indicating it's due, or the workers are due to have an increase in their wages. Management, on the other hand, would pick the one on the right because they're trying to show that there have been increases and they've been increasing steadily and rapidly, and perhaps they don't even need an increase in wage. So that's a tough one. You've really got to know a little background about labor and about management to be able to explain that and understand which should be which. So you have question 2 then on page 314, and then 3 through 7 that are asking about the other graphs over on page 315. And then you've got workbook page 117, which does some similar things as far as interpreting graphs, finding where graphs have been misleading and where statistics have been misleading based on the way they're represented. This is tough stuff, really it is. So take your time with it, read really carefully, read a second time, and if you get stuck, please email me and I will gladly help you out. I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a nice long weekend and are staying healthy, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Take care. Email me with questions.